that women would often strip down to their underwear, which must have been fun for the chap sitting on the threshing sledge.
Finally, the grain is passed through a series of sieves to get rid of the last of the chaff. And that's it, the end of another year down on the farm.
Nowadays, working in the fields is a lot easier, but it all started with the Mesopotamians.
The Mesopotamians came up with many of the things, like farming, that we now take for granted. But there's one possible invention that even today has experts arguing about whether we need to rewrite the history books: the Baghdad battery. In 1938, a small clay pot was found just outside Baghdad. Inside was a copper cylinder surrounding an iron bar. What was this thing for? Well, all you needed to do was to add a bit of acid, a bit of vinegar, a bit of grape juice, and you'd get some electricity out of it. And Marty has made a modern Baghdad battery.
We have indeed.
This is just a flower pot, right?
It's a flower pot. Do you want to pour some vinegar in?
That's ordinary vinegar, yes?
Just ordinary household vinegar. And then we have a copper pipe.
Yes.
And this is a steel nail, so that's my iron bar.
OK.
So that drops in there down the middle. And I'm actually using a little, this is my clever bit. This is stops the two shorting out.
They use a bit of bitumen or pitch.
They use bitumen. Yes. And then all we have to do is drop that in there, and that's it. And we can measure, we'll have a look and see if we can get anything out of it. So that goes in there like that. And then if I attach that to there and that to there, oh, you can see there's a little.
Yes, there were. It's kicking. About what?
It's about half a volt.
Half a volt. Now, it's not a lot, is it? The thing is that the concept of electricity couldn't have been totally alien to those Mesopotamians, because they did have electric fish. Just look at these fish here. And if I put the microphone in, you should hear some clicking, because they're making tiny amounts of electricity. So they clearly knew a little bit about electricity. So the question is, what on earth might they have used these batteries for, if indeed they were batteries? What's your theory, Marty?
Well, I mean, there has been a suggestion that they use them for electroplating. And I mean, that seems reasonable to me, because the iron rod inside gets effectively copper plated in this reaction. The copper kind of ends up on the iron rod.
Right.
So there must be enough to do that sort of chemistry.
Right.
So maybe you could.
I like that electroplating theory, because I happen to know that when they were curing leather, they generated the sort of chemicals with which you can dissolve gold. And if you do that, then you can electroplate gold onto, say, silver statues and make them look a lot more valuable. That would have been a terrific coup. Now, Irving, you got the blood off your hands.
Yes.
Good. Now, what about this? Do you think they were electroplating statues?
I don't believe a word of this electroplating theory, I'm afraid. It's romantic and wonderful, but I don't believe it. I believe that in Mesopotamia they discovered by accident one day, perhaps with a bowl of vinegar and an iron spoon or something, that you could get a kind of frisson out of it, but they didn't understand anything about electricity and they had no function for it. I think these things belong in the field of what you might call curing, and I think there are two real possibilities. One is that if you had an archipu or a priest dealing with a patient who thought they were bewitched, who had diseases, and with a lot of mumbo-jumbo and build-up, he said, you know, the climax of the thing, if you touch this with your finger, you'll feel this and everything will be better, then that would have been very
Driving
effective.
out the evil spirit?
Yes, that sort of thing.
You're a cynic, aren't you? You don't believe in chemistry?
I don't believe in chemistry. I failed my GCSE. So, but the other possibility is, which is not totally separate, is that we know from the classical authors that sometimes electric fish, like these little specimens here, were utilised in the treatment of pain. They had these fish, which presumably if you touch it with a wet bare foot, gave you a little shock, and experience showed them that it did cure some kinds of physical pain. So I think one or other explanation is much more probable than the fancy electroplating scheme.
Maybe. How are we doing, Marty?
Well, let's have a look, see what we can get.
You've wired them all up. Hey!
That's about 3 volts.
3 volts? Well, that's jolly good. We can
almost see whether it can.
Now look,
there you go.
It's jolly hot in that part of the world. An electric fan would have been really useful, wouldn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Much better than an electric shock to cure you of your demons.
I quite like Irving's idea. And I wonder whether if we lit the terminals of this, we might be able to...
Now, there's an idea.
Rather you than me, Marty.
Go
on, yes. I think we better stand back then, yes.
Exactly
he may explode.
This I have to see.
I hope this cures something.
Yes. What have you got, Marty? Ingrown toenails?
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's definitely
all right, all right. Yeah, it's not lethal, is it?
Not yet, anyway.
See if he changes colour.
Yeah. Yeah?
It works, doesn't it?
You can definitely get a little sort of tingle.
Flicking a 9-volt battery.
I don't think my demons have been exorcised totally, but nevertheless they're getting
you do feel better, though.
Oh, much better.
Well, that
much better, yes.
Absolutely.
Definitely. whatever they used these batteries for, if indeed they were batteries, there is no doubt that an awful lot of good science starts in the kitchen. And there was one even more fundamental thing discovered in Mesopotamian kitchens thousands and thousands of years ago.
People have been eating bread for thousands of years. And although these women still make their bread in the traditional Mesopotamian way, they buy their flour ready ground. But I brought along this original 3000 BC grinding stone just to see how we get on. Can I have a go? It's actually quite difficult. I can certainly see why you buy your flour from the mill.
Some of our earliest records of food come from the first of the Mesopotamian civilizations, the Sumerians. The wealthiest citizens enjoyed plenty of roast meat and fish in their diet, but for ordinary Sumerians, barley and wheat were the staple foods.
This is probably enough.
Fruit, oils, juices and honey enlivened the basic bread recipe. There were so many varieties that the Mesopotamians are said to have had more than 300 different words for bread.
And yeast was a magic ingredient, because the Mesopotamians knew that it made the bread rise, but they didn't understand why. I'm doing it really hard.
And it wasn't just used for everyday consumption. Bread and cakes were also made in Mesopotamian temples for use in religious rituals.
I got it. It's good. It's hot. Shall we try it? See? It's very hot. Delicious. We've made this bread using wheat, but the Mesopotamians also had barley. And the interesting thing about barley is that if you moisten it, that starts the fermentation process, and you end up with something far more important than bread.
Absolutely. Neither man nor woman can live by bread alone. And down here in the dungeon, we've got something rather special brewing. Beer. And I've got a whole production line headed by Ian Dixon, who's master brewer at Shepherd Neame. That's quite an old brewery, isn't it?
Since 1698, Adam.
But we're going to brew something rather older than that.
We are. We're going to brew something to a recipe that was put together in 1800 BC.
Wow, that's 3,500 years even before you were invented.
Before we were, yeah.
So where do we start?
We start with barley. That's the basic raw material.
Right.
Yeah, we steep it with water.
So what's the stuff?
This is called bapir.
Bapir.
It's a Sumerian barley bread.
And is it edible?
It is edible, you feel free.
So tell me what's in it before I eat it.
It has barley in it, predominantly barley.
Yes.
Then we have dates and also honey.
Oh, sounds all right.
Serves the usual
Tastes all right.
crystal.
Very sweet. Very good. OK, so where does that go? Into the next stage?
This will go on to the next stage of the mashing process.
OK, Jean.
Yes.
So in here you've got...
We've already put some bapir at the beginning,
Right.
and that's the source of starch.
Right.
We then added some water,
Yeah.
and to get it to the right temperature, which would have been around 63, 65 degrees.
Hang on a sec, they didn't have thermometers.
No, but they were very clever. They added 2/3 boiling to 1/3 cold, and that would have got the temperature around 63, 65 degrees.
That's very clever, isn't
And that's exactly what we do today in the brewery, but we do use thermometers.
it? You're up to date. So
Yes.
what else needs to go in here?
After the bapir's gone in and we've got it to 63,
Right.
we then would have added some of the ground malt,
Right.
which has come from over there. This is the
Right.
enzyme source.
OK, a bit of this in?
Yes, a little bit, please.
Right,
Thank
like
you.
that, right.
Yes.
Yes.
And
What else do you
then
need?
we need a few dates,
Dates,
please.
good.
This was the abundant fruit of the time.
This is what I like. How
Yes.
much of those?
All of it.
All of it?
Yes.
I'm keeping one for myself.
Yes, okay.
OK.
Then they would have added more sugar, which obviously would have been, in those days, honey.
Ah,
Yes.
the land of milk and
Milk
honey.
A little bit
I
of
can't
honey.
see. So we've got dates and honey, and back
And
here,
bapir,
and this
and
stuff.
malt,
Malt.
and the water.
And how long does that have to
This
sit
would
on?
have stood for about 3 hours to 5 hours, or maybe half a day, before it would have been ready for the next stage.
Now, Chris, what happens next?
Right, this is the next stage in the process. What we've got to do is to use this filter, which is made from reeds that we've collected
It looks
from
like an old doormat.
Well, no, these are reeds from the banks of the Euphrates that we collected last
Oh,
week.
yeah, I believe you.
Yeah, they
Right,
are,
OK.
yeah. Right, so what we're trying to do here is to separate out the nice sugary liquid from the mash.
Yes.
And leave the husks and the,
All the
bits of the dates behind.
OK.
So if you'd like to hold it over the
OK, over the
vessel
plastic
there,
one,
this is
yeah.
our fermenter. and we'll empty the mash into the filter,
Right.
and we should get nice wort coming out of the bottom.
Well,
There
we've
goes.
certainly got liquid coming out the bottom.
Good.
And indeed some of
Good.
the sides
That's
as well.
it.
Keep
That's
tipping, there's
it.
a bit more to go.
Good.
That's it, okay.
Right. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? I'll take that out of the way.
Okay, good.
Just put that
Watch
over
out
there.
for your shoes. Good.
Then, right, the next thing that we do...
Ah, the yeast.
Now, this is yeast.
Oh, it smells wonderful. It smells
delicious.
really, really good. Okay, can we pour that?
Yep, we pour this in, and the idea of this is that it will ferment the sugars into alcohol and carbon dioxide gas.
How much of it goes in?
That's
enough?
probably about right. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
good.
it.
Okay,